Hi, I'm Coop. Welcome to my kitchen, where I'd like to share some food and tips that have helped me and my family enjoy the way we eat healthy. Today, I'm making pork chops and a red beans and rice side dish, or at least my quick take on it, where I'm substituting in cauliflower rice and using my base dry rub barbecue spice mix to season it. For the red beans and rice side, I use 340 grams, which is 12 ounces, of cauliflower rice. I buy my cauliflower rice in frozen bags from my grocery store, but feel free to buy a head of cauliflower and rice it to add to your dish that way. 1 medium sweet onion, which is going to be sliced. A can of green beans, which will be drained of half of its liquid. A can of diced tomatoes with a small can of chili peppers. This adds a nice spiciness to the final dish. And since it won't be cooked for very long, I'm adding a tablespoon of tomato paste, which will up the final tomato flavor. And of course the red beans. I like using canned red beans. Canned red beans can be substituted for 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of dry beans, which is between 70 and 105 grams, but you will have to soak overnight and cook before adding to the dish. Before I do anything else, I'm going to salt and pepper my pork chops on both sides, and then set aside. If you want to, you can salt your pork chops the night before. This will allow the salt to penetrate all the way through the meat, giving a more consistent flavor. To slice the onion, first cut off the bottom. This provides a flat, stable surface, making it easier to cut the onion in half. Once the onion is cut in half, go ahead and peel it. To slice, cut lengthwise. For this dish, I really like having medium-sized slices of onions. That way, whenever I come across one on my plate, I know that I'm actually eating an onion instead of it just disappearing into the rest of the dish. The onion weighed 169 grams, which is about 6 ounces. For the full recipe and the calories of the ingredients, please check the description. For this spice mix, which I quite often use as a base for my own dry rub barbecue spice mixes, add 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Some chili powders have additional spices and flavorings in them, so you'll want to check before you add anything else. 1/2 tablespoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1/2 tablespoon of garlic powder. Now my chili powder has garlic powder in it, so that's why I didn't add more. 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, 1 teaspoon of dried basil. This will provide a sweet flavor in the dish since I'm not adding any sugar. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, black pepper to taste. To cook the red beans and rice side, take a large pan and place it over medium-high heat. After it's heated up a little bit, add 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil if you're using a non-stick skillet like I am. If not, add about a tablespoon. After the oil heats up, add the onions, and reduce the heat to medium. You should cook the onions to your desired doneness. I'm going to cook these until they start to go brown and limp. This will take several minutes. Make sure to check and stir often to keep the onions from burning. After the onions are done cooking, you need to check to see if you need any additional oil for toasting the spice mix and the tomato paste. If so, add about a teaspoon. And and then add the spice mix and tomato paste on top of the oil. Stir into the onions after a few seconds, and quickly add the cauliflower rice. The water released will keep the spice mix from burning. Now's a good time to break up the big chunks of cauliflower rice and stir till the rice is all the same color. That way you know the spice mix has coated all of the cauliflower rice bits evenly. Cook until most of the liquid has evaporated. Then add and stir in the tomatoes and green chili peppers together. Add and stir in the red beans. Remember to drain the green beans of half of its liquid before adding and stirring in. Cook to your desired consistency and making sure everything has warmed through. I'm going to use a cast iron griddle to cook my pork chops, but you use whatever works best. Heat over medium-high heat. I'm going to check to see if it's hot, and so I place my hand over it. I'm not actually touching the griddle. And once the griddle is hot, I add a tablespoon of vegetable oil and spread around the griddle using my tongs and paper towel. I'm going to cook these pork chops using my preferred cooking method for thicker pieces of meat and cooking surfaces where hot spots can be a problem, like my cast iron griddle, which heats up over 2 burners. So I'm going to flip my pork chops pretty frequently, every 60 to 90 seconds. This is still going to allow the pork chops to get brown or develop a crust, but it also lets me check to see if anything needs to be adjusted. I also like searing the edges of thicker pieces of meat, and early on I do that if there is a strip of fat on one of the outside edges, and if not, I like leaving it until the very end so that I can see how the meat is cooking through. Plus, searing the fat edge early on renders the fat, providing a little extra for the pork chops to cook in, and also makes it more enjoyable to eat. Now, one of the reasons I really like this side dish is that it goes with just about any other kind of meat that you would traditionally have in a barbecue, from ribs to pulled pork, and you could actually add in your cooked pulled pork directly into the side dish instead of making a pulled pork sandwich, to just about anything from a chicken and hamburgers and hot dogs. When the pork chops have a good browning on both sides, now is a good time to sear any edges that you haven't. Cuts of pork should be cooked to at least 145 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 63 degrees Celsius, and the best way to check is with an instant read thermometer. You want to get the probe into the middle and thickest part of the meat. It might take a couple of tries to get a good reading. Once the crust has fully developed, or it's as brown as you like it, take the pork chops off the heat and let them rest for at least 3 to 5 minutes, covering them to keep them warm. It's okay to have to stick the pork chops into a 350 degree oven for a few minutes to make sure that they are fully cooked through. After letting the pork chops rest and the side dish cool down a bit, I'm now ready to get the most accurate weight measurement possible, as the steam released from the dishes changes the weight. The pork chops have about 1.96 calories per gram, which I calculated from the information available on the nutrition label. The red beans and rice have about 0.43 calories per gram, which I calculated by the total calories of the ingredients, which was 709 calories, divided by the final weight of the dish, which was 1,632 grams, or about 57.5 ounces. With the dish weighed, It is now time to plate and weigh my meal. After placing my plate on the scale, I tare it, and then put on the pork chop, noting down the weight. Then tare again so that I can weigh out my red beans and rice. My plate has 448 calories on it. 342 of those come from the pork chop, which weighed 174 grams, or just over 6 ounces, and the other 106 calories from the red beans and rice, which weighed 244 grams, or about 8.6 ounces. Thanks for stopping by. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. You can check out my Instagram at n_coops_kitchen. Now go make some great tasting food.